Hey, what's up? This is Scott with Level Up Tutorials here, and today I am going to be completing this where we actually build our blog index. I mentioned a little while ago that we're going to do this and gave you an opportunity to build this yourself. Now that opportunity might have been a little bit too long, and I apologize for any sort of delay between these videos. However, today we are going to get this query that we wrote and we're going to throw it into GraphQL in our actual code and get this building out an index. So let's head to Visual Studio Code. We have some blog posts, and let's go ahead and check out our index page. And here we just had this really super basic index page, which we can get to through we click on our logo right here. Okay, it says hi people, that's it. Now what we want to do is really just sort of look at what we did in our post page, because the post page is really the key to this all. So I gave you a challenge to do this on your own, and if you did, I hope that you tried to do it maybe even without looking at the docs, because what we have already within this code enabled you to do this. The hints in this code are within our post template as well as that original query that we wrote. So let's head to the post page, and you can see that we don't have a ton of crazy stuff going on here. We simply just have a function where we have a template where we're getting some data and we're getting our posts from markdown remark. Okay, that's all great, right? But what we don't have is anything super fancy here. The biggest thing is that the wrapper is the post query where we're exporting our post query. So let's head back to our index page, and let's take not this index page, I want the other index page. Okay, here we go. And let's take this knowledge and build out something. What we want to do is we want to export a constant page query. Okay, page query is going to be equal to, just like it was before, GraphQL, and then we have some backticks. Okay, now inside of these backticks is going to be our page query, where we can say not query, query, and then we're going to just say, and this is where things get a little bit different. Okay, in our post query before, we just had blog posts by path. Okay, this is just the name of our query. Now what we actually want is to give this a different name, so not blog post by path. We're going to just do index query. Okay, this is going to be grabbing all of the indexes. Now let's go ahead and have some brackets. Now in here, we get to do the same kind of stuff we did in our actual query. And in fact, we can head to our graphical interface. I'm going to copy and paste this all markdown remark. Notice how I'm not copying these exterior brackets here, and paste this inside of this index query. So what this query looks like is we're saying all markdown remark, give me 10. Okay. I'm not doing any sorting, I'm not doing any filtering, I'm just simply getting all 10 pages. And then I'm going to publish the edges, the node, okay, inside of that, inside of the front matter, I'm going to grab the path and title. Now you could also grab some sort of date if you had a date associated with each page. But if you're looking at this and thinking, that's it, that's all I have to do, then you are absolutely correct. Because now what we should have happen is, if I save this, let's go ahead and open up our dev tools into our actual site here. And if you don't have the React dev tools by now and you're working in React, you gotta get the React dev tools. They make life so much better. Sorry, let me blow this up here. Maybe not that much. Blow it up enough to where you can see it. Let me close this console, or I don't even know how to say console right anymore. Everyone critiques how I say console at this point. So let's check out our React code here. And what we want to do is look at the index page. Okay. So let's search just for index page. Let's select it, and you can see we have some props, and inside of here we have one of these props is a data. Inside of that is all markdown remark. Inside of that is our edges. Inside of that is all of our stuff. So we now have all the tools we need to build this, right? This data that came from markdown files is in React. And if you know React, you should be able to get this data out. Now, let's go ahead and just do it anyways, regardless. I can use this object properties here and get the data, which is the prop that we're getting, which is data, as you can see here. And inside of data, let's just go ahead. I'm just going to do it below here. This site isn't going for any sort of design awards or something like that. I feel like I say that all the time. Perhaps I should just get good at designing stuff. Okay, so here we have our data object, and inside of data, let's take a look at the, we have all markdown remark, we have edges, 0, okay, and then it's pretty much just an array inside of edges. So we just need to get to edges, and since we're doing this as a functional stateless component, and I'm just returning the whole thing, you could do this as, let me grab dot markdown remark here. We could do dot markdown remark dot edges dot map. Okay, and we're going to be iterating over all of our edges, and we can just say post, okay, because why call this an edge when it's a post? And we can say post. Now inside of here, I'm simply just going to return, so I got some standard parentheses here. I'm simply just going to return an anchor tag. You could have this as obviously a component itself, an anchor tag with an href, and this href, hyperlink reference, and we could say post.path. Okay, post.path. Now let's close this anchor tag off, and inside of here do a little bit of post.title. And let me see if I have any sort of unique ID here on these posts. Well, and you can see already I'm already failing this because it's not just post, it's post.node.frontmatter.path.title, that sort of stuff, okay? We don't have any ID here. I'm gonna fix that in a minute, but let's go ahead and actually change this node.frontmatter business first. So we could say .node. So we could say .node.frontmatter.path. Copy this all, paste it in here. Obviously, like I said, you could do this a little bit differently. You could pass this data into a component, and then you could further flesh out these properties and these values in a different way. But for the sake of brevity, I'm just going to leave it here, just like this. And let's check this out. Let's see if this worked. Okay, let's see if it blew up. It's currently blown up. Can't read property edges of undefined. And if you notice, I did have a little bit of a issue here. I used from the post query markdown remark, which was used to grab a single post, right? However, we're grabbing all markdown remark. So obviously this data object that comes back is not data.markdown remark, where it's data.all markdown remark. And I should have noticed that. And if you did, kudos, right? Okay, so data.all markdown remark.edges.map. And here we're just taking each post that's within there, and we're just simply outputting a link, and we're using the post.node.frontmatter.path and post.node.frontmatter.title. So let's check this out. It's going to give me an error about there not being a key, which obviously there is no key, so you know that's the kind of error you're going to get. Let's check this out, and here, sure enough, we have both of our blog posts. And if we click on first blog post, you can see we've arrived at our first blog post. But as you can see here, we now have a little bit of an ugly blog post index. Now, one last thing is that, like I mentioned before, if we open up our console, if my console wants to open, apparently it doesn't. If we were to go to our console, let's go over here, we're obviously going to get the unique key issue. Now, that's no big deal, because if we head to our graphical, we can check out that each node, in addition to front matter, has an ID. So if we hit play, you can see it's giving us an ID. And right now this ID is generated, and that generated ID is just the absolute path of the file as a long string. So if we really wanted to, we could publish this ID into our query, where we could say ID just above front matter, and then we could use the key as equal to all this stuff. Let me now put this on new lines so we can actually read. Okay, and we can say .node.id, check it out, and let's head back to our Gatsby default starter. And you can see no longer getting that error. If I head to our React Dev Tools and we were to go to the index page, we could see that we have keys on these links. Now let's talk about one enhancement that can be made here. For instance, I use an anchor tag to go to these pages. If we want to keep this in React, we want to use this link tag. So obviously you'll want to change these anchors to a link. In addition to that, we could also add a date stamp on each of these posts and grab that date and things like that. Perhaps we could have a front matter that was in our markdown. Maybe perhaps this front matter is a draft, right? Maybe this is a draft and we could use that to filter our posts. So there's a lot of things we could do to improve this, one of which was really easy, some of which are a little bit more complex here. So in the next video, what we're going to do is actually build out a little bit of a drafting system where we can have a draft on this post, and we obviously don't want to show any posts that are drafts. So that's where we're going to take this, and we can continue to go from there. So again, like last time, I challenged you to make this block index, and this time I'm going to challenge you to make this draft system, right? And if you think about it, it shouldn't be too hard. However, you might need to look up some filtering syntax for GraphQL, because we have not talked about that. But now you have the tools to head to GraphQL and play around with your queries and know exactly what you're getting into before you start just messing around with code. If you would like more premium content, head over to leveluptutorials.com and sign up to be a Level Up Pro. I got a ton of stuff coming out this month, including a new series on Figma. We're going to be doing some advanced Meteor stuff and a whole bunch of cool stuff. I'm going to dive into a little bit more GraphQL in some different ways. I'm still working on what exactly that is. And at the release of React 16, or as it's also known, React Fiber, I will be doing an entirely new React series because the other one is out of date. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.